Hi, my name is Clayton Peoples, and I'm the author of The Undermining of American Democracy, How Campaign Contributions Corrupt Our System and Harm Us All. And I've created a number of videos here on YouTube to describe the book in a little bit more detail. And in this particular video, I'd like to talk about Chapter 5 of the book. In Chapter 5, I talk about how campaign contributions are connected to the rising inequality that we have within the U.S. You probably have heard that we have an increasing amount of inequality in the United States. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, the middle class is shrinking over time. This is a pretty well-established pattern, by the way. This has been happening since at least 1980. There are lots of statistics that you can look at to look into that in a little bit more detail. So for instance, the Gini coefficient, Gini, describes how inequality has grown over time in the US. And so if you're curious, you can look at that. But, in this particular chapter of the book, I describe how campaign contributions have contributed to that pattern. And so if you look at the role of campaign contributions in policymaking in the United States, you find that increasingly policy decisions are reflecting the interests of wealthy donors rather than the interests of the general public. And this manifests in a number of different ways. So for instance, if you look at subsidies that go to particular industries, often we find that actually campaign contributions impact the disbursement of those funds, and in turn, that leads to greater inequality between sectors of the economy. But even more generally, I think it's really important to look at, for instance, the tax code in the United States. So in this particular chapter, Chapter 5, I look at the tax code in the US, and I look at how an increasing share of the taxes in the US are paid by ordinary citizens rather than by corporations, for instance. But even there, we're seeing a decrease in the progressiveness, if you will, of the tax system. And a lot of those changes, I would argue, are linked to our campaign finance system. And so, for instance, I do describe a recent tax code change, a recent bill or act that, drastically reduce the taxes that the wealthy pay. And I talk about how some policymakers even described how, they were afraid to go against their donors on this particular piece of policy because of those campaign contributions and their reliance on those contributions. And so, ultimately, I argue in this chapter that our increasing inequality is in fact connected to our campaign finance system, which I think just underscores the importance of campaign finance reform, which I talk about in a later chapter of the book. So again, it's The Undermining of American Democracy. You can find it on Amazon or other booksellers. Also, of course, as I mentioned, I've posted other videos here on YouTube that you can take a look at. So I would encourage you to do so. So have a great day. Take care.